Part 48. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 490. Molten Mine Area, Coordinates B151, H117. As soon as Alan crossed a road divided into 4 and 5, he ran into a group of heretical sect members who were on their way. Although these people were all wearing protective clothing and helmets on their heads, making it difficult to see their appearance, Alan was able to identify them instantly. The team of more than 30 people in total wore nearly 20 different models of protective clothing, including the bloated space work suits that had been discontinued for decades. The overall structure refers to the extravehicular space suits of the old era, but the materials and craftsmanship are completely opposite to the concept of tailor-made space suits and excellence. If I can sum it up in a few words, it is simple, cheap, and modular. This kind of space work suit is equipped for external hull maintenance workers, a profession that once existed but has now disappeared. During the 900-year drifting process of the Ark, various damages and failures inevitably occurred on the external hull. In most cases, such problems were solved by repair robots. But robots are not omnipotent, and some complex operations still have to be completed manually, which naturally gave rise to such a special profession. An adult with normal intelligence and physical ability needs 3 months of training to become an external hull maintenance worker. Generally, 10 to 15 workers form a maintenance class, plus 1 engineers serve as team leaders and technical guides. At the peak of this industry, the number of workers engaged in external hull maintenance on the entire Ark was nearly 10,000. The salary level of this profession is not high. It is just enough for daily expenses, but the subsidy for each maintenance operation is much higher than the per capita salary level of Ark residents, in a place where a meal includes meat, protein synthesized meat, and vegetables. Bean sprouts and some fungi produced in hydroponic farms, the main edible vegetables during the rafting period. A standard meal only costs 50 credits, and the subsidy for a maintenance operation outside the cabin is 6,000 to 8,000 credits. If it is for emergency maintenance tasks, it will be even higher. Of course, high remuneration also means high risks. According to official statistics, the overall mortality rate of external hull maintenance workers is around 6.9% based on the number of trips out of the cabin. That is to say, for every 100 workers who leave the cabin to perform maintenance operations, 7 people could not return to the Ark alive. After the Ark landed on Alpha Planet, this high-risk profession naturally disappeared from human history, and the thousands of space work suits in stock instantly became useless waste at a very cheap price. Flowed into the people. Many people who cannot afford professional protective clothing will go to the black market to buy antiques from decades ago as substitutes. However, because these space work suits are originally the product of extreme cost reduction, coupled with their long-term disrepair, their reliable performance not high. In addition, this equipment was originally designed for the gravity-free environment of space. When used on the ground, it will greatly limit the wearer's ability to move, because the death rate caused by accidents caused by these space work suits is even higher than the drifting era was even higher. Although there are many people buying it, they are basically poor novice hunters or low-level mercenaries who are short of cash. They also know that the performance of this thing is not very good, and it can wear through some less dangerous items. The place is okay, but if you wear this thing and go to the molten mine area, it is no different from seeking death. As for the team that Alan bumped into, almost half of them were wearing these cheap space work suits, and the shabbiest ones were even patched and wrapped with tape. Neither the search and rescue troops sent here nor the staff stationed in the base can wear this kind of equipment. The identity of this group of people can only be exiles living in the wilderness, and the exiles who appear in the molten mine area. Otherwise, they must be the group of extremists who belong to heretical sects. Fortunately, the group did not discover Alan. Alan hid behind an upturned roadbed and carefully peered at the group of people with a scope mounted on a sniper rifle. They seemed very anxious. The leader kept waving the automatic rifle in his hand. He seemed to be shouting at the person who had fallen to the end of the line. but the distance was too far, and Alan couldn't hear his voice, and because he was wearing a helmet, he couldn't judge what he was saying by observing the shape of his mouth. Could this group of people have rushed to support friendly forces? This was the first thought that came to Alan's mind. Could it be that the commander and team leader Brea are exchanging fire with people from the heretical sect? So this group of people is rushing deeper into the mining area? Alan's eyes swept over these people one by one. Their equipment was very poor. Not only were the protective suits made of colorful Universal brand, but the weapons were also the same. The best among them was the one held by the leader. He had a 50% new Type 01 rifle, and the gadgets in other people's hands were not even considered fire sticks in the eyes of a soldier in his elite unit. Alan even suspected that in a high-temperature environment like the molten mine area, those things that were pieced together from miscellaneous parts and could barely be regarded as guns might explode as soon as they were fired. As for high-tech equipment such as electromagnetic weapons and laser weapons that require strong logistical support, they do not exist at all. The combat effectiveness of this team is not very high. Looking at their marching ranks, their combat literacy is obviously not good. As for the tacit understanding and cooperation between them, it is impossible to talk about it. Even the garrison corps, which Alan and the others look down on the most on weekdays, can randomly pull out a team of 10 people and have the two sides confront each other head-on in an open area without the help of terrain, intelligence, fire support, and other foreign objects. The garrison corps team can also. It was easy to annihilate more than 30 people, and there was a high probability that they would be unharmed. The distance between me and them is about 170 meters. Their weapons are basically mechanical sights, some don't even have sights. The chance of hitting me is very low. Alan thought, calculating, and there are two cracks several meters wide in the middle. It will be difficult for them to rush to my side in the first place. His fingers gently rubbed the trigger guard of the sniper rifle, and he began to feel tangled in his heart. In order to speed up their march, they always choose open and flat places to move, with few bunkers around them. With my ability, I can completely wipe out all these people here. This may share some of the pressure for the commander. But once there is a firefight with this group of people, my position will inevitably be exposed. If there are still their people nearby, then I will be in a dangerous situation. The most fatal thing is that I will not be able to. The news about the support base has been passed on to the commanders. My first priority is to deliver intelligence, but commander and the others may be in a bitter battle. Even if I can arrive at the battle area in time, I won't be able to get close to them. Then it's better to eat this group of people first and then make other plans. After Alan made up his mind, he immediately loaded a bullet into the chamber and began to search for the target. The assault rifle loaded with active ammunition was at his feet. If there was a container of seed of corrosion among this group of people, he was fully capable of killing such a monster. He wouldn't even give the corrosion seed a chance to jump over the first crack. Although Alan serves as a sniper in the team, his performance in fully automatic weapon shooting is also among the best in the team. He uses a 0-1 assault rifle to shoot a moving target at a distance of 150 meters. One magazine has 20 bullets. The number of bullets that will miss the target will not be more than 3. This kind of moving target is not the kind of moving target in the shooting gallery that moves slowly like a grandma in a wheelchair, but moves at a speed of up to 25 meters per second and moves irregularly. Drone target. The imaginary enemies they set up during training were completely based on the most ferocious indigenous creatures in the wilderness or enhanced erosion seeds. Alan moved the muzzle of the gun smoothly and locked the sight on a strong man in the center of the team. This big man carries an old-fashioned general-purpose machine gun on his shoulder. Although the rusty gun body means that the daily maintenance of this thing is very poor, or there is almost no daily maintenance, and the failure rate when shooting must be high. It was still high, but Alan didn't dare to gamble. No one could guarantee that the machine gun would get stuck after firing a few bullets. More than 150 meters, within 300 meters, This is the most terrifying distance for the suppressive power of this general-purpose machine gun. A 10mm caliber full-power bullet can easily penetrate a meter-thick rock, and a 100-round bullet chain. This ensures the continuity of firepower. The machine gunner does not need to aim accurately at all. He only needs to shoot splashing water at the place where Alan is hiding, and he will be unable to raise his head. The first shot must kill the machine gunner who poses the greatest threat to him. The ballistic calculator that comes with the sniper rifle scope can still work normally. Alan does not need to waste energy to calculate parameters such as wind speed and air pressure. The computer has automatically adjusted the deviation of the crosshair for him, allowing him to shoot at 170 meters. Distance can almost be said to mean where to hit. Bang! Bang! He pulled the trigger. One shot in the chest, one shot in the head. The machine gunner fell in response. The team instantly became a mess. Some people immediately rushed to the nearest bunker, while more people were spinning around like headless flies. The most outrageous guy was tripped by his companions. He fell to the ground and rolled out for more than 10 meters, falling into a crack full of magma. Just as Alan expected, this group of people had not received any formal military training at all, and they were completely unable to come up with any emergency plan when they were ambushed. As for the leader, his reaction was quite fast. He immediately jumped behind a boulder. However, he did not give orders in time and gather his men. Instead, he poked the gun in his hand from the edge of the boulder. He came out and fired randomly towards the outside. As for the impact point of the bullet, it was thousands of miles away from Alan's hiding place. Even this commander has no military qualities at all. Any rookie who comes out of the recruit company will perform much better than him at this time. This is not like a troop rushing to support friendly forces, but more like a group of hard workers driven by overseers. This guy didn't even know in which direction he fired the gun. Alan thought, and he felt a lot more confident. 2 more shots were fired, killing a person who was trying to pick up the machine gun that fell on the ground. For a moment, those who could not find a bunker were lying on the ground. Maybe they thought they could escape from nowhere. Bullets were flying, but from the perspective of Alan from a higher ground, these guys looked like they were lying on the ground waiting to die. He even gave up the usual 2-shot shooting and used single bullets to kill the enemies exposed under the scope one by one. It was like the god of death was calling his name. Every few seconds, someone would be shot in the head. Every shot is a one-hit kill, without exception. Counting the first machine gunner who was killed, there were a total of 11 people who failed to find a bunker. It took Alan less than a minute to kill all 11 people, and he didn't even have the second magazine. Not empty yet. Until this time, this group of people had not discovered Alan's location. The environment in the molten mine greatly interfered with their judgment. They could only hear gunshots coming from a distance, and their companions were killed but they didn't even have a chance to fight back. The rest of the people are hiding behind the bunker. The air temperature is so high that thermal imaging cannot be used to determine their location. Alan moved the gun body slightly, and the sight of the scope was on a few rocks. Moving back and forth between them, at first, some people followed their leader's example and stretched out their guns from the edge of the bunker to shoot randomly, but after Alan shot one of them through the palm, no one did this anymore. Done. In the molten mine area, as long as the protective clothing is damaged, even if the injury is not fatal, it is equivalent to a slow death. These people do not carry any repair tape or the like. If a hole is punched in the protective clothing, I can only watch helplessly as all the oxygen inside leaks out. This feeling may not be as satisfying as being shot to death. No one showed up, and the situation suddenly fell into a stalemate. For Alan, this is not good news. Although he suppressed the group, if other members of the heretical sect hear the gunshots and move towards the side, the situation will not be good. P.S. Thank you lover for having no tears. By Piagwai never recharges, Book friend 201906051414399292, surrender quickly, reward 100 starting coins. PPS My personal writing style is that I like to introduce some background stories of the arc in every possible way in the main plot, because I think this can make the world described in my book gradually become real and concrete, but then again, this seems to be a bit of a waste of word count. I don't know if this will affect everyone's reading experience, and I don't know if you like this kind of insert description. I hope you can give me some suggestions or opinions. Alien Relic. Hunter. Author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 491. We must not be dragged down by them like this. Alan took out 2 bullets with very strange shapes. The warheads of these 2 bullets are flat, and the surface of the bullet body is covered with etching patterns. Near the tail of the bullet, there is a smallest chip. Jack. This is a sniper shotgun that can set the detonation time of the charge through a CNC chip, allowing the bullet to explode after flying to a designated location, killing enemies hiding behind bunkers through prefabricated fragments. Alan used a data cable to connect the bullet to the ballistic calculator, set the fuse parameters according to the distance, and then pushed it into the gun chamber. The prefabricated fragmentation power of sniper shotgun is actually not strong, and is weaker than small offensive grenades. However, its advantages are long distance and high accuracy, and it can easily kill lightly protected targets within 1,000 meters. Alan didn't need to kill them directly. As long as he could destroy their protective clothing, it would be impossible for these people to walk out of the molten mine alive. After a quick glance at the images captured by the battle recorder, Alan chose a bunker with the most people, pointed the muzzle of the gun about half a meter directly above the boulder, and pulled the trigger. Bang! This special bullet instantly passed through the space of more than 100 meters, and exploded in mid-air the moment it just passed the boulder. Prefabricated fragments and hot metal jets flying everywhere instantly covered those hiding behind the boulders. Except for the leader, who was wearing a lightweight carbon fiber armor, everyone else's protective clothing was penetrated, and the metal fragments even penetrated into their flesh, causing them to roll on the ground in pain. These can only be regarded as minor injuries, but the oxygen that continues to leak out from the breaks in the protective clothing is fatal. Looking at the group of wailing and screaming subordinates around him, the leader's heart was filled with fear. He reached out his hand tremblingly and touched the scratches on the helmet's visor with lingering fear. The metal cracks almost penetrated the protective visor with 3 layers of metal coating. Counting himself, there are only 9 members of the cult who are still able to move, and they still don't know who ambushed their team, where they are, and how many guns they have. However, the leader's breathing gradually calmed down. He knew very well what punishment he would receive if he failed to complete the tasks assigned by the Prophet on time. The leader couldn't help but clenched his fists. Compared with the punishment content that makes people shudder just thinking about it, death is simply a relief. Anyway, he was going to die anyway, so it was better to give it a try. If he could kill the ambusher, he might even get a special reward. He once had a friend who received a priestess as a reward for similar merits. Those priestesses were all beauties from the upper class of Ark. To use a somewhat vulgar saying, their skin was so tender that it could pinch out the water. It is simply not comparable to those women among the exiles who have been living in the wilderness all year round and whose skin is as rough as sandpaper. He didn't know whether the priestess's skin could be squeezed out of water, because those priestesses were all wrapped in thick black robes when they went out. Except for the occasional smooth and shiny calf that was exposed when they took a step, they would not show up in front of others at all. Show your body, they are the private property of the Prophet, and only those who have made meritorious deeds for the sect have the opportunity to touch them with the permission of the Prophet. Thinking of this, the leader's Adam's apple couldn't help but slide up and down, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Somehow, the panic and tension in his heart actually dissipated a lot at this time. First of all, we have to figure out the location of the ambusher. The leader thought for a moment and grabbed a dying congregant at his feet. This guy was unlucky, a metal fragment happened to cut off his collar. He went in, cut the main artery in his neck, and the blood spurted out, poured directly into the protective suit. He had no air left, and his pupils began to gradually dilate. The leader took off his helmet directly, dipped a handful of plasma in his hand, and spread it evenly on the inside of the helmet's mask. He raised the helmet to his eyes and saw that the smooth surface of the mask had a mirror-like texture, and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he kicked the bodies of the congregants who had just died out of the bunker. Seeing someone coming out from behind the bunker, Alan immediately put the target within the crosshairs. But he soon discovered that it was a dead man, and even the helmet rolled to the side. The other party pushed the body out, apparently to trick him into shooting. There are still enemies hiding behind 3 bunkers, but there is only 1 round of sniper shotgun left. Even if this round is fired, it will be difficult to break the deadlock. Alan was thinking in his mind, it's better or worse except. While the other party is hiding behind the bunker and not daring to show his head, leave quietly by yourself. At the same time, on the other side of the battlefield, the leader pointed to the cult member closest to his hiding bunker and ordered, "You, rush out and pick up the machine gun." But, there are snipers on the other side." The congregant looked sad and shook his head reluctantly. "Go if you are told. I will ask others to provide you with fire cover. As long as you run fast enough, he may not be able to hit you. If you can pick up the machine gun, you will definitely be rewarded when you return." I don't want to go, please, boss, I don't want to die." The congregant breathed rapidly and kept pleading, almost kneeling down to kowtow to him. "Are you planning to disobey the will of the great God and the Prophet?" The leader's tone suddenly turned cold. "The Prophet has given us the power to command you. My order is an extension of the Prophet's will. If you dare to disobey, it will be an act of apostasy. Do you want to experience the goo pond for yourself?" After hearing the leader say the words goo pond, the believer's body immediately trembled violently. He crawled to the edge of the bunker with a look of despair, raised his head and looked at the leader. Okay, boss, I'll rush out on the count of 3, I'll leave the fire support, I'll leave the support to you." His voice trembled along with his body, which made people suspicious that he was rushing out. "The moment you go out, will your ankles suddenly become weak and you will fall directly to the ground? Don't worry, as soon as you rush out, we'll shoot at the same time." The leader's tone softened slightly. "Come on, run faster. If you run faster, you won't die." I know. The congregant nodded mechanically, then took off the gun hanging on his body and took several deep breaths in succession. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, he jumped up from the ground and rushed towards the machine gun that fell to the ground 20 meters away. However, no fire support shots were fired, no one dared to put their bodies or weapons out of the bunker, and no one fired at all. But before the congregant realized this problem, he felt as if someone had punched him hard on the side of his head. He clearly heard the click sound when the cervical vertebrae broke, and the vision of his eyes went white at first, followed by a brief blur, and then endless darkness. The bullet from the sniper rifle entered from the right ear, and the instantaneous cavity effect shredded almost 2/3 of the brain. It also completely tore the left half of the face, and blood mixed with minced bones and flesh slapped on the inside of the helmet. The huge kinetic energy attached to the warhead slammed his body to the ground. An eyeball popped out from the hole in the mask, rolling on the hot ground, but it didn't roll very far. It exploded due to the high temperature. I saw him. I saw the ambusher. I saw the flash of fire when he fired. The leader stared closely at the reflective helmet visor. He is on the opposite side of the rift, the two juxtaposed behind the boulder. He took a deep breath and shouted to the others excitedly, and, he seems to be the only one. One person. The other believers looked at each other, and there was only one person on the other side. Could it be that the one who ambushed them was not a whole sniper team? A team of more than 30 people was actually so suppressed by a sniper that they didn't even dare to show their heads. Among the remaining congregants, those who were more fierce by nature couldn't help but tighten their hands on the guns. No need for the leader to say much, they knew in their hearts that if they could kill the sniper, they would. What kind of reward? Their boss is not the only one who is thinking about the graceful figure shrouded in the black robe of the priestess. These people have also been coveting it for a long time. Many congregants have talked about these charming women in private. Many people feel that as long as they have sex with them once, it will be worth it even if they die immediately the next day, and now, they have such an opportunity. In front of my eyes. This sniper is so powerful that he is most likely an important figure among the enemies. Even if he is not, then he has killed more than a dozen believers. If someone can avenge these dozen believers, he will definitely do so. Can gain the appreciation of the prophet. At a distance of less than 200 meters, as long as you were lucky enough, a stray bullet might kill the opponent. Thinking of this, these people began to breathe heavily. He only has one person. Even if he can shoot perfectly, he can only aim at one target at a time, and he can only kill one person with one shot. The leader continued to shout to his men, "We will charge together later. Go out and spread out the formation as much as possible. As long as we can withstand the first few shots, with our advantage of more people and more guns, we can suppress him in turn. By then, the initiative will be in our hands. He has killed 16 of us. This is a valuable big head. Think about it, if you can take this guy's head back, how much reward you can get." Within the heretical sect, there is a very special reward and punishment mechanism called Tooth Eye Award. The name is taken from the ancient saying an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, the basis and goal of Tooth Eye Award to determine merit. Status has nothing to do with status, but is related to the number of heretical sects killed by the target. The more members of the heretic sect a person kills, the higher the value of his head. This is quite similar to the ancient revenge order. The taste of the friend of the leader, just by chance, killed a machine gunner of the field force and brought the body of the machine gunner back to the camp. The machine gunner had been killed in previous clearing operations. More than 100 members of the heretical sect, including a messenger of the prophet. After confirming the identity and records of the machine gunner, the prophet immediately awarded a priestess to that person, and also assigned him the management rights of 3 large-scale settlements. Anyone who hears this kind of thing will inevitably become jealous. As long as they are lucky, even an inconspicuous low-level believer can have a chance to soar into the sky. "No one can rob me, this guy belongs to me," a member of the congregation suddenly roared, "his head belongs to me." "Humph, it will all depend on your abilities then," another member of the congregation snorted coldly, "if you want to get ahead of us, you can rush out now. I promise not to fight with you." The fight continued, but these people never dared to rush out of the bunker alone. They had not yet been completely dazzled by the attractive rewards. Everyone knew that if they rushed out alone at this time, they would 100% be killed by the sniper. Killed. If you want to rush, everyone should rush together. They subconsciously focused their attention on the leader. I counted 3, and everyone rushed together. The leader raised 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3, charge. The moment the leader shouted 3, the believers rushed out of the bunker with strange screams. Bang! The sound of sniper rifles rang out again, and a church member fell down in response, but the others did not stop. As they rushed forward, they picked up the crude weapons in their hands and shot wildly at Alan's location. No one noticed that the leader did not rush. He did not even show his head to observe the situation outside. Bang! Another shot was fired, and the congregant who just said "no one can rob me" fell to the ground, and a large hole from front to back appeared on his helmet. But after the shot, Alan had to retreat behind the bunker. Although the weapons in the hands of these heretical sect members are extremely crude, the bullets they use are real 10mm caliber full-power bullets. A few rounds on areas with thickened armor such as shoulders, chests, or arms may be fine. But if the mask is hit from the front, he will definitely die. The bullets fired by this group of people fell like raindrops on the two boulders. Although their shooting skills were impeccable, if more than a dozen guns fired at the same time, there would always be a few lucky bullets. As the leader said, they have more people and more guns. At first, Alan could take advantage of the information gap and terrain advantage to catch them off guard, but once his position was exposed, his initiative would be lost. Exist again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 492. The opponent only needs to maintain this situation. Some people use firepower to suppress Alan, and the other people find a way to cross the two gaps across the center of the battlefield. After losing the distance and cover, even if Alan fights alone, no matter how powerful you are, two fists are no match for four hands. Alan gritted his teeth, loaded the last sniper shotgun into the chamber, then quickly stretched his upper body out of the bunker, aimed at the most densely populated location of enemies and pulled the trigger. Bang! Before Alan could observe the effect of the shot, a huge force knocked him to the ground. Have I been shot? This was Alan's first reaction. After a brief blank of consciousness, waves of heartbreaking pain came from his head. He quickly stretched out his hand to fumble. Luckily, the bullet hit his helmet. On the arc surface, it bounced. However, one corner of the protective mask was shattered, a few glass shards were inserted into his forehead, and blood slowly flowed down along the eyebrow arch. Alan didn't have time to treat the wound, so he quickly took out a roll of repair tape from his pocket, tore off a piece, and sealed the hole in the mask. Although the injury on his forehead hurt, it was not fatal. There are no important organs at this location, the superficial temporal artery on the side has not been pierced, and the brain is protected by hard bones. What's more, in the current situation, he has no time to bandage himself. After giving himself a pain-relieving injection, Alan leaned against the boulder and kept adjusting his breathing rate. The effect of the sniper shot just now seemed to be pretty good, and the messy gunfire on the opposite side had stopped. After coming down, I don't know how many people were killed. Is the shot that just hit me a stray bullet? With this thought in mind, Alan turned on the battle recorder and pushed the progress bar to 30 seconds ago. It was not a stray bullet that hit the helmet. The moment Alan leaned out to shoot, the leader also stepped out of the bunker and fired a series of short bursts at him with the 0-1 rifle in his hand, and then the picture shook violently, and in the next shot, the recorder was already facing the leaden sky. At a distance of 170 meters, it is not difficult for a shooter who has trained for a certain period of time to hit the half-length target with a 0-1 rifle. The 0-1 rifle in the leader's hand may be the most accurate one in the hands of this group of heretical sect believers. Alan took off his backpack and reached out with his sniper rifle. 2222. There was another series of short bursts, and Alan was very familiar with the unique sound of the 0-1 assault rifle. However, this time, the backpack that was stretched out was not hit. The bullet hit the boulder, and the rock fragments it splashed and hit Alan's body. The opponent's shooting skills were not as good as Alan imagined. The shot just now seemed to have a greater proportion of luck. On the other side, the leader was angrily changing the magazine. His shooting skills were not bad, but the shot he just hit was indeed due to good luck. This 0-1 assault rifle is probably as old as it was twice as big as his, and the rifling on the inside of the barrel was so worn that it was almost invisible. To be able to hit someone at this distance was really a sign of his character. Damn. It's over now, damn it. Damn it. The leader retracted behind the bunker holding the gun and cursed a series of curse words bitterly. All his men have been killed, and no one can help him attract firepower anymore. And just after the first round of shooting, he thought he had successfully killed the sniper. But the other party is still alive. He clearly saw the sniper leaning back and falling. How could he not die? A full-power 10mm bullet can tear off a large piece of flesh even if it is just scratched. However, a sniper was clearly shot in the upper body. How could he still be able to move? Could it be that the opponent is wearing heavy power armor? Then I still have a damn chance of winning. He still had 2 magazines left on him, but what good was that? This gun couldn't penetrate the heavy armor worn by the sniper at all. Even if he stood in front of him and let me shoot him, I couldn't do anything to him. He curled up as much as possible, pressed his unprotected legs under his buttocks, hunched his waist, and pressed his head against the boulder that served as a cover. He didn't know when there would be another round of airburst bullets. Exploding above your head, this feeling of waiting for the other party to pronounce your fate is really a kind of torture. He couldn't help but put his hand into his pocket and took out a very smooth black stone talisman. He held the stone talisman in his palm and muttered in a low voice, "Great God, please, please protect me, I don't want to die." Somewhat ironically, although this leader is usually very loyal to the Great God and sect, it is not even an exaggeration to describe him as fanatical. But this is actually all pretending by him. In fact, he does not believe in any great gods at all. In his opinion, the Prophet and others can obtain powerful power only because they have good luck in a certain alpha ruins. But he is a smart man. Before the small group of exiles he belonged to was annexed by the heretical sect, he had already seen the power and development potential of the heretical section in addition to the arc that exiled them. In addition, the heretical sect will obviously become the second largest human force on Alpha Planet. So he won over several exiles who usually had a good relationship with him, launched a rebellion, assassinated the leader of this group of exiles and those who were loyal to the leader, and took the remaining 50 or so exiles to actively join the heresy. The embrace of the sect, and it was precisely for this reason that he took the position of leader. What a great God, it's just bullshit, he often thought like this. If I'm lucky and can pick up some treasures in the ruins, I might be able to do better than the Prophet. As for the containers that were parasitized by the corrosive seeds, he never came into contact with them. In his opinion, those who risked their lives for the sake of so-called beliefs were all humming evil. But now, he wished that the great God really existed, and it would be best if he could hear his prayers and save his loyal believer in danger. P.S. Thanks to Mr. Sanchezan for the 1 million starting coins. I have been writing this for several years. I never thought that I would have the day of the Silver Alliance. I am really excited and don't know what to say. Additional updates will be arranged tomorrow. Specifically, I can only say that I will try my best to add as many updates as possible. While ensuring the quality of the chapters, I will try my best to break out as many as possible. PPS thanks to bookfriend 2017021615151550 for the reward of 449 starting coins. Thank you to the other side Quick Surrender, and Baihu Ching Cheng for the reward of 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi San. Chapter 493. At this moment, the black runestone in his palm suddenly began to emit a scorching temperature. This change made him stunned. The air temperature in the molten mine area was nearly 100 degrees Celsius. Under the protection of protective clothing, this nearly the high temperature of Beidou is completely isolated. But now, the temperature of the black runestone seemed to have ignored the gloves of the protective clothing, continuously seeping through and reaching his skin. He almost thought he was holding not a stone but a red-hot iron ingot. The leader quickly opened his palms and saw that the skull emblem carved on the surface of the black runestone was emitting a dark red light. He took another look at the reading of the thermometer. There was nothing abnormal. There was no abnormality on the gloves that were in direct contact with the runestone. No signs of melting or burning. Could it be that, the great God has really appeared? The leader suddenly felt a burst of ecstasy. He knelt down quickly, raised the runestones above his head, lowered his head, and kowtowed to the ground continuously. "The great God is above, please save me. I am your most devout believer." All those thoughts he had had were thrown away at this moment. Now all he could think about was praising the great gods. Even the helmet's protective mask had a few cracks and the oxygen was flowing out. The ground leaked without even realizing it. "Pious believer," a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "Is it the great God?" He was stunned for a moment, then quickly raised his head and looked around. "No, it's the Lord Prophet." Although he has never spoken to the Prophet, as a fanatic believer, he will not fall behind every time the Prophet preaches. As time goes by, he will naturally become familiar with the Prophet's voice. This made him couldn't help but feel a little thump in his heart. Could it be that this black runestone was a long-distance communication device unearthed in a certain ruins? "It's me," the voice said again. "Praise the great gods." "May the glory of the great gods be with you," the leader said very neatly. "Sir Prophet, my team was ambushed by a powerful enemy. Please save us." He did not reveal the fact that the team had been wiped out except for him, since this was not a so-called miracle. The piety that had just emerged in his heart suddenly disappeared without a trace, but in any case, since he could get in touch with the Prophet, he might still have a chance to be saved. As far as he knew, there were at least 3 or 4 combat teams composed entirely of mature erosion seeds in the area within 10 kilometers from here. These teams were unable to communicate with their followers and they only listened to the Prophet. Order, if Lord Prophet is willing to send a small team to support. Although he would usually avoid this monster when he saw it, now he was eager for these monsters to appear in his field of vision. "The only one who can save you is yourself," the Prophet said slowly. First, Lord Prophet, what does this mean?" the leader said in astonishment. "As people of the great God, each of us possesses a gift from him, and under this power, the pagans are vulnerable." Gift, a gift from a great God, the leader's body couldn't help but tremble. He knew in his heart what the gift the Prophet meant. If a believer wants to obtain powerful power, the simplest and easiest way is a common approach is to accept the God seed. Accepting the God seed is a saying within the heretical section. To put it bluntly, it is actually letting the cells of the erosion seed infect the human body and turning the human body into a container. With the help of the power of the erosion seeds parasitic in the body, these vessels are capable of fighting far beyond ordinary people, but this also means that this person's life has entered a countdown. He had witnessed with his own eyes the process of the erosion seeds in 2 vessels from the parasitic stage to the acute transformation stage. Just looking at the pain would make one's spine shiver and the hairs on the hair stand on end. If that person were himself, he would rather commit suicide by swallowing a gun before the period of sudden change. When he heard the Prophet mention the gift, his heart skipped a beat. He thought the Prophet was going to transform him into a container of that kind of monster, but he soon felt relieved. There are no active cells in his body that carry the seed of erosion, which is what the sect calls the God seed. These subordinates of his are also human beings and have no containers. Even if the Prophet wants to let him accept the gift, it is impossible to create a divine seed out of thin air. In order to test this idea, he asked tentatively, "Sir Prophet, when you talk about the gifts and power from the great gods, are you referring to the God seed?" No, the Prophet's rejection made him completely relieved. "The gift I am talking about is more powerful than the power of the God seed." Really, he pretended to be extremely surprised, but in his heart he hoped that the Prophet could quickly send a corrosion seed team over to kill the enemy sniper wearing heavy armor. "Do you want to be like me, gain the attention of the great God, and become his most loyal servant?" "Yes. Yes. Of course I am willing," the leader said hurriedly. "From now on, your status will be equal to mine, and we will serve the great God together regardless of each other," the Prophet continued. Praise the great God, the leader was lying on the ground. Although there was still a trace of doubt in his heart, the sudden joy had completely destroyed his thinking ability. He couldn't believe what he just heard. The prophet is saying that he will give me the same status as him, and power from the great gods. Then in the future, will I also be able to become that being beneath one god and above 10,000 people? Can I also enjoy those stunningly beautiful priestesses at will? He was so excited that his body on the ground was shaking slightly. But just when he was about to say something, he suddenly realized that he seemed to have lost control of his throat. What happened? He tried to open his mouth, but even his mouth wouldn't obey. He stood up, but not because of his own will. He was horrified to find that someone seemed to be controlling his body, and his consciousness became a bystander. From now on, you are me and I am you, the prophet's voice sounded in his head again. At this moment, he suddenly understood what the prophet just said: there will be no distinction between us, meant. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, San. Chapter 494. His body walked out of the bunker uncontrollably. He wanted to shout no, but he couldn't make a sound at all. He was terrified, but his face was smiling. Before he was exiled from Ark, he especially liked reading novels online, especially those fantasy novels originating from Eastern culture. He remembered that there was a special term in it called seize the body, which refers to some immortal cultivators who have lost their bodies and used force to seize their yinshin, that is, things like consciousness and soul. Possessing other people's bodies to achieve rebirth. Could it be that his body was seized by the prophet's soul? But what he couldn't figure out was that the prophet's physical body had not been destroyed, and was more powerful than his own body, which was not even an enhanced human body. Why did he come to seize him? He wanted to beg the prophet to let him go, but he didn't know what to do. At this time, his body had already left the bunker under the control of another consciousness. Bang! The sound of a sniper rifle sounded, and his body staggered half a step, and his head tilted back significantly, but he did not fall, but stood up straight immediately. A blood hole the size of a bowl, running from front to back, appeared in the middle of the head. The completely torn facial features were bloody and blurred. Through this blood hole, you could even see minced brains and minced meat mixed together, red, white and white. It looks like crumbled tofu drizzled with southern milk. The leader's original consciousness always stayed at the moment when he was penetrated by the bullet, but the body's movements did not stop because of this. He continued to walk forward, faster, and finally started running. Alan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Unlike the leader, the former only knew that he hit Alan, but he couldn't see where he hit at all, while Alan could see through the scope of the sniper rifle. He could clearly see the shocking bloody hole on the leader's head. Even if he's not dead, can this guy still be considered a human being? It seems that there is a container among this group of people. Alan thought to himself and opened the safety of the assault rifle placed at his feet. But he did not directly shoot at the opponent with an assault rifle. The opponent was running extremely fast. In this case, if he directly used active ammunition, at least half of the ammunition would be wasted. There was no way to get supplies in the mining area, and every time he used active ammunition, he would lose one, so he had to use it carefully. Alan picked up the sniper rifle again. This time, he did not aim at the opponent's head or chest, which are critical parts for humans. Instead, he chose the knee as the target. After calculating the advance, he decisively took the shot. The trigger. Bang! The opponent's running route was a straight line, and after being targeted by Alan, he did not make any evasive movements by shaking left and right. Of course, it is also possible that his eyes were damaged and he could not see that he was being targeted by the gun. This shot accurately hit the knee of the opponent's right leg, and the entire leg was broken into two pieces on the spot. Fortunately, the protective suit was made of tough material and was not torn, so the broken leg did not fly out. The leader, who lost the support of his right leg, immediately fell to the ground and fell to the ground like a dog chewing on the mud. However, as soon as Alan changed the weapon in his hand to an assault rifle loaded with active ammunition, it was already struggling to get up from the ground. Half of the trouser leg of the protective suit was hanging around the broken calf, and several strong tentacles were drilled out of the end of the thigh. Using these tentacles as support, the leader jumped and continued towards Alan. Rushed over. It is indeed a container of erosion seeds. Alan frowned, but the tentacles grow too fast. Could it be some kind of mutant? He tried to fire a series of short bursts, and the active ammunition fired from the muzzle penetrated into the body in the protective suit, making a few muffled puff sounds, but the other party was only slightly hindered. Stagnated, and then approached him at an even faster speed. Is it an insufficient dose, or is it blocked by the armor lining inside the protective suit? Alan was a little confused. He had just fired 5 rounds of active ammunition, and all of them hit. Logically speaking, a corrosive seed of this size would not be affected even if there was no it can hit the nuclear, and the toxicity of 5 rounds of active ammunition is enough to be fatal. However, judging from the opponent's feedback, the effect of these 5 shots is not even as good as conventional bullets. At least the physical lethality of conventional bullets is greater. Alan could only replace his sniper rifle. If the opponent wore inner armor under the protective suit, he would have to destroy the inner armor first to have a chance to damage the body of the seed of corrosion. The penetrating performance of living ammunition is poor, which is an unsolvable problem. It does not mean that the penetrating performance of this kind of ammunition cannot be improved, but after the penetration ability is improved, when hitting the target, the warhead may the flesh-eating worm's active cells have penetrated the target before they have time to be released, so the gain outweighs the loss. Alan gritted his teeth and made a decision in his heart: simply use continuous shooting from a large-caliber sniper rifle to completely smash the body of the container, fully exposing the body of the erosion seed, and then use active ammunition to complete the fatal one strike. Just when he was aiming at the target, the other party made an action that he didn't expect. The upper body of the container bowed back significantly. It folded its body completely like an invertebrate, and those flexible tentacles were like stretched bowstrings, tightly stretched behind it. After accumulating enough after the elastic potential energy, the folded body suddenly stretched out. Bang! It bounced off the ground like a cannonball. It flew dozens of meters into the air in an instant, and the 2 chasm-like lava cracks in the original version were also crossed by it in the blink of an eye. Alan was surprised by the sudden burst of maneuverability of this thing. He quickly raised the muzzle of his sniper rifle and chased the container flying in the air. It was too late to aim. The moment he felt it was in place, Alan almost subconsciously pulled the trigger. Bang! I don't know if his marksmanship is so good that even a waist shot can hit an object moving at high speed in the air, or if it's just luck, the shot just hit the container's chest. There is nowhere to borrow force in mid-air. According to this trend, it should fall into the magma. Even if the magma cannot burn the erosion seeds, it will not be able to crawl back to the surface for a while. Thinking of this, Alan finally relaxed. Tone. But the next scene made his eyes widen. The container flew upside down under the influence of the bullet, and several tentacles suddenly shot out from the body. These tentacles extended dozens of meters in an instant, and they were nailed deeply into the body in front of Alan like hooks. Among the huge rocks. These tentacles were pulled straight at once, but they did not break. The thing at the end of the tentacles used inertia to throw its body out, and headed towards like a meteor hammer. Lund smashed it over. The whole process took less than a second, and the other party had already closed the distance to within 20 meters. The image of himself being smashed to death by this fleshy meteor hammer has already appeared in Alan's mind. Although his brain had not yet reacted, his body that had undergone rigorous training relied on muscle memory to respond. He picked up the assault rifle on the ground and rolled it on the spot, making the meteor hammer vulnerable to gun. Flew past his scalp, and as he got closer, he quickly dodged to the side and rear of the corroding seed, and poured out all the remaining active ammunition in the magazine. The distance between the two sides is less than 5 meters. Even if the opponent is padded with inner armor, it cannot stop the warhead of the active ammunition. The toxicity of these dozen bullets is enough to kill a 4 to 5 meter tall T-type mutant. The T letter of T-type mutant is taken from the English word Titan, which means giant. Titan-type mutants have terrifying defense and strength. Their only weakness is poor flexibility. The sumo wrestler Kaylan and Victoria met in the East 9 district was the first sumo wrestler discovered by the Security Bureau. T-type mutant, the experts in charge of classification were still struggling whether to classify this guy as N-type or SP-type, but later during several encirclement and suppression operations, agents from the Field Force and the Security Bureau, after encountering similar mutants several more times, the expert in charge of classification immediately slapped his head and created a brand new classification, T-type mutant, Titan-type mutant. After many actual combat tests, the Security Bureau can basically determine that if the core cannot be hit, 15-20 units of flesh-eating worm active cells can poison a T-type mutant. And the active ammunition that Alan shot into the body of the erosion seed in front of him had already exceeded this number. Why isn't it dead yet? Alan pressed the magazine release button with his thumb and turned the gun horizontally. The empty magazine was immediately thrown out of the magazine well, but just when he wanted to insert a new magazine, a stick-like the spear-like tentacle suddenly penetrated his chest. He lowered his head and glanced at his chest in shock. He was a little confused. His body was obviously stabbed from side to side, but he didn't feel any pain. Is it because he is going to die soon? It turns out that before you die, will the connection between consciousness and body be stripped away? Alan wanted to raise his hand to grab the tentacle inserted in his chest, but his arms did not move at all. His body was like a toy doll that had been powered off, stuck in place. Alan could no longer feel his limbs and torso, and couldn't even move his eyes. He could only watch the bloody tentacles being pulled out of his body, and his body tilted to one side. Go down. Just when he was about to fall to the ground, his arm suddenly moved and he supported the ground with his palm. What is going on? If Alan could still control his facial muscles at this moment, his face would have a look of extreme horror. But he can't. He watched his body get up from the ground awkwardly, moving the joints of his body like a mechanic testing a new mecha. A voice sounded in his mind, "This body is good, much better than that piece of trash just now." Who is it? Who is talking? Alan's consciousness was startled. He wanted to question the other person, but his body was not under control at all. He felt like he was playing a visual novel game. Although he had the perspective of the protagonist, no matter how much he shouted on the other side of the screen, the protagonist on the screen would still only follow the flow of the plot. There won't be a superfluous action or a superfluous line. But even a visual novel game with no controls at all will give players some options to achieve different endings, but now, Alan has completely become a bystander, a host in his own, an observer in the body but without any control. What exactly is going on? He was different from the leader of the heretical section. He didn't read novels and naturally didn't know the concept of seizing the body, but like the leader, he felt the bone-deep and unspeakable fear. Feel. Something has entered the body and replaced the body's original soul. There is another thing that neither the leader nor Alan can see. After they lose control of their bodies, their facial features will undergo some subtle changes. Although the changes are extremely small, they are completely different. It became another face. If the leader's consciousness could see the mirror before dissipating, he would be shocked to find that his face turned out to be exactly the same as that of the prophet. If his head had not been hit by Alan's sniper rifle, a very strange scene would have appeared, two people with exactly the same appearance, looking at each other silently, and showing a smile of unknown meaning at the same time. This is the power that comes from a higher class of beings, that can completely overpower Alpha civilization. Alan lowered his head, looked at this familiar body, and muttered silently. For a great cause, I need more of me. If Kaylan could see this scene, he would be surprised to find that he is not unfamiliar with this weird ability. Isn't this the assimilation ability obtained by the agent program Smith in The Matrix after it became viral? It's just that the background of that old movie is in a virtual digital world. The rules of that world are made up of countless ones and zeros, and the constituent elements of the real world are far more complicated than those of the digital world. In the digital world, copying, pasting, and overwriting are just a few simple running instructions. But reality is not metrics, and the Prophet is not a virus program. This is a cheating method that is close to rewriting the rules of the universe. Even the Alpha civilization is far from reaching this level. P.S. Thanks to book friend 201901191746544904 for the 600 starting coins. Thank you for the 500 starting coins that the beans don't seem to be cooked. PPS emergency situation. The pungent smell of burning garbage and plastic came from downstairs today. It gave me a headache. I closed the window a few minutes late. The whole room was filled with the smell. I hid in the bathroom. The smell had almost dissipated at 9 o'clock. The plan to add more updates was completely ruined. I will add more tomorrow. I hope everyone can understand. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 495. The faint blue stream of light instantly penetrated the tumor-like protrusion at the end of the tentacle mass, and the black object wrapped inside exploded. Click. Kaylan only heard a crisp sound, and the tunnel fell into darkness, as if someone suddenly pulled the switch and all the lights went out at the same time. No, this metaphor is not appropriate. Not only the lighting equipment in the tunnel was extinguished, but also the searchlights and status warning lights on the mechas and power armors, the tactical flashlights and laser-assisted aiming on the handguards of the assault rifles. It disappeared, and even the fluorescent display on the inside of the helmet's visor dimmed as if the power had been cut off. Wherever you can see, you can't see your fingers. It was as if a black hole had appeared in the tunnel, absorbing all the light. Kaylan tried to move the shoulder joints of the power armor, and the hydraulic actuator was still functioning normally. In other words, the energy of the power armor was not exhausted. But in this case, why did the heads-up display go out? Could it be an EMP shock? The drive motor of the power armor can still operate normally, but the precision electronic equipment such as the head-up display has crashed. This situation is indeed very much like being attacked by an EMP, but there is a more sudden problem, but Kaylan can't ignore it. Quiet. The surrounding environment is really too quiet. There was silence in all the communication channels. Not only were there no exclamations or questions from other team members, there was not even the sound of electric current that should have been caused by interference. They were just a few feet away from him, but Kaylan couldn't hear any sound. He couldn't hear the sounds of voices, footsteps, gunfire, not even the sounds of breathing and heartbeat. The black hole not only absorbed all the light, but also seemed to suck out all the sound in this space. Could it be that all the air in the tunnel was taken away, causing the sound to lose the medium through which it was transmitted? Kaylan quickly rejected this idea. He was still stepping on solid and flat ground. Even if the entire tunnel was evacuated into a vacuum, as long as they were still in contact with the ground, the tunnel itself was the best way to transmit sound. Medium. The speed of sound propagation in solids is even faster than that of liquids and gases. As if he understood something, Kaylan took a step back and reached back. The Hound was standing behind him just now. A veteran like him, who has experienced hundreds of battles, will stick to his position even if he encounters such an unexpected situation, instead of panicking like those inexperienced recruits, running around in confusion. But Kaylan missed the mark. He felt that the fine hairs on the surface of his skin stood on end, and a shuddering feeling of fear gradually spread in the darkness. Kaylan controlled his breathing rate as much as possible. He slowly retreated to the back of the team's original position. Not only did the Hound disappear, but everyone else also disappeared, and even the huge Valkyrie one evaporated out of thin air. He was the only one left in the tunnel. "Have you been teleported?" At the moment when that tumor-like protrusion was exploded. "This damn thing also has a death rattle, Note 1, effect. At least what is certain is that the abnormal phenomena that occurred in the tunnel are definitely related to the tumor-shaped object. It's a pity. It would be nice if there was a Baron of Rivendell. Teleport here and then back, just pretend that nothing happened." "No to," Kaylan complained in his heart, trying to regulate his nervousness. But before he could relax his tense facial muscles, a voice suddenly sounded in the darkness. The sound of slimy limbs rubbing against the ground as they squirm. He is not alone in this dark space. Kaylan immediately picked up his gun, but when he wanted to shoot in the direction of the sound, he found that he could not locate the source of the sound at all. The crawling sound seemed to come from all directions, and seemed to be coming from him. Sounded deep in my mind. Damn it! Kaylan cursed softly, his lips opened and closed, but no sound came out of his throat. This is a world without light and sound, and he once again verified this guess. Kaylan began to sweep around, and he held the trigger tightly. There was no light from the muzzle, and there was no deafening sound. Only the real recoil from the butt of the gun proved that the warhead was fired. He took off his gloves, stretched out a hand and put it next to the ejection port, and in an instant several hot bullet casings fell into his palm. Hiss! Kaylan took a breath of cold air and threw the cartridge case to the ground. He also did not hear the unique crisp sound of metal collision. Something's wrong. He suddenly realized something and stopped shooting. Why can I hear the wriggling sound of tentacles in a space where no sound can be heard? This doesn't make sense. There is no light and sound. Could it be because my senses are affected? For example, the part of the brain responsible for vision and hearing is interfered with by the outside world? This is very possible, at least in terms of difficulty of implementation. It is much simpler than removing all the light and sound from this space. Even with the current technology of mankind, it can be done. Kaylan took a deep breath, then opened his mouth and shouted silently, "Old dog. Leighton. Asano Akira. Can you hear my voice? If you are nearby, move closer to me." Kaylan waited for 10 seconds. There was no answer, and nothing came close. The subtle squirming sound still lingered in my ears, neither far nor near. Kaylan took out another lighter from his pocket, lit it, and then slowly put a finger over it. You can feel the scorching temperature on your skin, but you can't see the flames dancing at the air outlet. Only light and sound are blocked, but the heat, or energy, is still there. He pulled out the pulse laser pistol from his waist and pressed the muzzle against the butt of the assault rifle. If the physical laws of this space change and all light will be sucked away, then it is impossible for laser weapons to cause any damage to the target, but if the energy of the material itself is not affected, maybe it is another way of saying it. A few seconds later, Kaylan touched the few molten holes on the gun butt and fell into deep thought. PS Note 1, Death Rattle Effect, from the card game Hearthstone. It refers to a special effect that is triggered only after the death of follower cards, including a few equipment cards. Note 2, Baron Rivendell is also a card in Hearthstone. Its effect is to trigger the follower's death rattle twice. PPS Thanks to Bookfriend 20210316133335505, Traveler 0821, Yvonne for a ride, and 0HJKLG for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 496. This space gives people a very weird feeling, but it does not seem dangerous. The ambient temperature is about 20 degrees, and the oxygen content of the air is very sufficient. Even without powered armor and protective clothing, humans can still be in this place. Stay alive. Kaylan simply sat down on the ground and thought about how to break the situation. The fear of darkness has been engraved in human genes since the ancient times of the Earth, and during the 900 years of interstellar drift, the dark space has left an indelible shadow in the memory of this race. Darkness, it often means danger and death, which is derived from instinctive fear, especially in a completely unfamiliar environment. But for some reason, after getting used to the darkness, Kaylan felt that this space gradually became more intimate. It was like returning to the mother's womb. Even the creepy tentacles squirming sound seemed like it turned into the sound of amniotic fluid squeezing and flowing around the embryo. Strange, why do I feel like this? Kaylan thought to himself, the feeling of returning to the mother's body, an artificial womb made of metal or glass and filled with liquid nutrients. He closed his eyes and tried to recall the feeling of breathing in the sticky nutrient solution, only to find that those memories had long been blurred. More than 20 years had passed, and the only impression he had of his childhood was that of human cultivation. That blinding light on the center ceiling. The lights are really harsh. He always wanted to turn off the glowing thing. A dark environment can make him feel safe and comfortable. As for many times, when Kaylan is alone in his small house, he turns off the lights, firstly to save electricity bills, and secondly because he is born with an indescribable repulsion towards bright places. To him, darkness represents not danger, but safety. He closed his eyes, although in this space, it made no difference whether he closed his eyes or not. Some chaotic memory fragments began to pour into his mind, some belonging to him, and some not belonging to him. The information from the Alpha Civilization stone tablet, this dark space seemed to give them an inexplicable sense of security. They could not, no matter how scared I am, I won't hide anymore. Kaylan felt as if he had been stuffed into a cold glass jar. A liquid with a strong smell of blood rushed into his nasal cavity and poured into his trachea and lungs. His limbs were all shackled. As he stood, a mechanical arm that was too precise to look like a human creation had a thin blade clamped at the end, moving in and out of the blind spots in his field of vision. Is this a memory fragment from the Alpha Civilization? Is it a first-person perspective of some kind of living biological experiment? Kaylan thought this, but when the perspective moved down, he saw his own feet. They were a pair of human feet with a complete skeleton structure. Purple blood vessels could still be seen vaguely under the skin. The 10 toes seemed a little swollen, perhaps because they had been soaked in liquid for too long. The pale skin and under the fingernails the flesh color contrasts sharply. Kaylan saw an inconspicuous mole on the outside of the little toe on his right foot. His breathing suddenly hitched. On his body, in the same position, there is also a mole of almost the same size. This is not a fragment from the stone tablet. Is this my own memory? But Kaylan never remembered being soaked in such a jar. This glass jar was obviously not a medical cabin, and the transparent liquid in front of him was not LCL, commonly known as water of life, but another completely different organic substance. Mixture. Judging from the size of his feet, the self in this memory fragment is obviously an adult, so the facilities of the Human Cultivation Center can basically be ruled out. Is it a scene from some nightmare? Or is it that my memory and the things in the stone tablet have merged, and the two have been confused with each other? Could it be that subconsciously, he put himself into the perspective of a certain memory that did not belong to him? He tried to search for more information from this memory, but found that the world outside the glass jar was completely blank. The glass jar is transparent, not much thicker than the glass slides used in the laboratory, but Kaylan can't see the outside scene at all. It's like a sandbox game. The scope of the game is only limited to the glass jar. That thin and transparent glass is the border of the map. Beyond the border, there is an endless void without any modeling or mapping. That is the unobservable world. Why does this memory suddenly appear? Does it have anything to do with this dark space? Kaylan opened his eyes, but the surroundings were still dark, and the sound of the tentacles squirming never disappeared. He had no clue about the memory fragment just now, but he thought of a way to solve the current predicament. Regardless of whether it works or not, at least give it a try. Kaylan clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and held his breath. If the darkness and silence are due to the shielding of one's own senses, then oneself in the time-stop state may be able to break free from it. He raised his hand, with his index finger tilted forward, and the other four fingers pointing toward the palm to form a chicken claw shape. This middle-of-the-road posture comes from the villain Dio Brando in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and is the signature ability of stand-in is time stop. Smash Varido. Unbearable severe pain instantly filled the skull cavity, and the surrounding darkness instantly faded away, turning into a gray and white world, like an overexposed black and white photo. Dark gray lines outline the outline of the tunnel, with blurry and thick shadows on the edges, as if some special filter has been added. About 5 meters in front of Kaylan, stood a humanoid silhouette. Its upper body was human, but its lower body was a group of squirming tentacles. I thought the voice I kept hearing came from it. Past came. Kaylan gritted his teeth, suppressed his headache, and raised a hand towards the human silhouette. Almost at the same time, the other person also raised the corresponding arm. This thing can move within the time frame. As soon as this idea came to Kayan's head, the pause ended. He held his knees with both hands, panting heavily, sweat sliding down his chin and dripping into his collar. The close-fitting clothes he was wearing were already soaked on his back and chest. This time the pause lasted for almost 1.5 seconds. This was a new record, but Kaylan couldn't be happy at all. That human silhouette standing 5 meters in front of him, what on earth is it? Why can he move while time stops? Why did it immediately follow the same action when I raised my hand? Is it a living thing, or an hallucination before your eyes? Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 497. If this thing is a shadow or a mirror, then how to explain the group of tentacles on its lower body? Kaylan reached out and touched his legs were still fine, and there were no changes. He could even feel the elastic socks on his toes, which were specially designed for hunting dogs. The military supplies purchased by the special forces are said to cost more than 100 credits in odd or even pairs. That outline was obviously two completely different creatures from the monster summoned by Park Sang-woo. Although they both had sticky and greasy tentacles, the thing in front of Kaylan retained most of its human characteristics. At first glance, it looks a bit like a corrosive seed that has merged with the container to a certain extent. I should be able to do it a few more times. Kaylan gritted his teeth, took off his helmet, put his fingers together and pressed them tightly on his temples on both sides. Smash Varido. He returned to the gray-white world again, and the silhouette of the human figure still stayed in place. Kaylan took half a step back, and the opponent followed up half a step, and when Kaylan took a step forward, it stepped back the same distance. This human-shaped shadow always kept a distance of 5 meters from Kaylan, never getting close and never far away. No, this thing is not a mirror image of myself. If it is a mirror image, it should also move away when you move away from it, and when you get closer, it will also move closer. When Kaylan raised his right hand before, the opponent also raised his right hand, not the mirror-symmetric left hand. It's not just imitating its own movements, it's more like. Kaylan wanted to do a few more sets of tests, but the sharp pain in the back of his mind forced him to exit the time-stop state. Despite this, the duration of the time stop this time reached an unprecedented length of nearly 4 seconds. This was a result that Kaylan had never dared to hope for when practicing on his own before. What does the 4-second time pause mean? Not to mention anything else, just talking about one-on-one duel, Kaylan is almost invincible. He can go around the opponent's back and put the muzzle of the gun at the opponent in these 4 seconds. pulled the trigger on the back of Ian's head. From the opponent's perspective, it was as if the warhead suddenly teleported from Ian's magazine to his own head, unable to escape at all. Moreover, the feeling of headache is much weaker than before, and the sequelae are not as strong as before. How is this going? Is this ability like some kind of skill in fantasy novels? As long as you can break through one shackle, your strength will advance by leaps and bounds before encountering the next hurdle? Or is it because of the current environment? Kaylan prefers the second guess. I just don't know if the duration of the pause will return to its original length after I leave this place. Although 3-second man is a label that makes male compatriots avoid it, if the time stop can last for 3 seconds, it would be perverted enough. 3 seconds may be difficult to satisfy the girl you love, but it is more than enough to kill someone or complete some operations that are impossible to achieve under normal time flow. Kaylan activated time stop again. Then he picked up the gun and pointed it at the shadow 5 meters away. He pulled the trigger, and the bullet froze in mid-air just as it flew out of the muzzle. There was even a circle of gray-white airflow that was also solidified around the muzzle. Under the effect of the gray-white filter, this circle the airflow is like a big messy marshmallow ball. In the time-stop state, only things that Kaylan directly touches can be moved by him. When the things are out of his contact, they will blend into the background and become part of the freeze frame picture. He moved the muzzle an inch laterally, fired again, and then cancelled the time stop. Calculated based on the muzzle velocity, the bullet will hit the target within a few tenths of a second after Kaylan releases the time stop state. Of course, the premise is that the target can be hit. Just when Kaylan was about to enter the time stop state again to observe the shooting effect, a large number of memory fragments rushed out from the depths of his mind like a floodgate. His brain was even unable to process such a situation for a while. The large amount of information caused a brief downtime state. Many pictures flashed by at high speed like a slideshow. Before he could even see the contents clearly, these memory fragments were silent again. Kaylan felt like he was holding a TV set playing at 64 times speed. Even if he stared at the screen intently, he couldn't capture enough information. If what is played on the screen is a continuous piece of content, even if the speed is faster, you can still guess some of the plot by connecting the previous and later contexts, but what happens to be broadcast is a postmodernism movie full of absurd and weird styles. In an art editing film, each frame is completely independent content. There is not even a single repeated scene among the hundreds and thousands of pictures that flash by in one breath. Even a genius with extraordinary memory would probably have to. He looked confused. If these memory fragments are compared to raindrops falling from the sky at high speed, then Ian's consciousness is like a person standing on the edge of a cliff to catch water with both hands. The rain is pouring down, and his palm is as big as his hand. The rainwater that can be caught is only the handful in the palm of the hand. Kaylan only remembered 3 scenes. The first scene is of a square that is so vast that it seems to have no boundaries. The sky above the square is covered by heavy lead gray clouds. From time to time, several flashes of lightning will flash among the clouds, lighting up a corner of the sky for a moment. The scenery in this sky is almost identical to the molten mine area, except that there are no plumes of sulfur smoke rising from the ground. And in this square, there were thousands of people standing. Of course, the word needs to be enclosed in double quotes. These people are almost identical to the shadow Kaylan saw in the time-stop state. They have human upper bodies, and their legs are replaced by a large group of tangled tentacles, just like the legendary creature mermaid same. However, this mermaid fish refers to an octopus. These people are 5 meters apart from each other in front, back, left, and right, and they stand neatly, just like a parade arc being lined up for review. What makes Kaylan a little regretful is that he can't see the faces of these creatures clearly. When he focuses on their faces, the focus of his vision becomes blurry, just like being recognized by the AI of the child supervision plugin. It has become a scene that is not suitable for children, as if it has been automatically mosaic. Kaylan had already experienced the scene once in the bottomless sinkhole, that dream full of bugs. He knew that he couldn't see the faces of these things clearly, not because his sight was blocked by the mosaic. It's because these faces don't exist in his memory at all. P.S. Thanks to book friend 2018082617331234 for the 100 starting coins. P.P.S. I originally wanted to use the stream of consciousness writing technique to dig a few holes, but after writing it, I realized that my writing skills are still not good, and painting a tiger is not the opposite of a dog. I am a B-type, please be a little considerate. There should be another chapter later, and it will most likely be a 4,000-word chapter. This chapter can be regarded as an extra update for the Silver League boss. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 498. Could it be that the shadow seen in the paused state was one of these humanoid creatures? Is this a creation of the alphas? Or, are they the true appearance of the alphas? When thinking of this possibility, Ian's breathing suddenly became faster. In the 50 years since humans landed on Alpha Planet, thousands of ruins have been excavated, and more than 1 million documents and items have been transported from the ruins alone, but it is still unknown what the Alpha people look like. And Kaylan, who received the inheritance from the stone tablet, also never saw the true face of the Alpha people in those memory fragments. The creatures that once ruled this planet were even more mysterious than those incomparably powerful prehistoric species. Although traces of their lives are all over the planet, experts and scholars can only get a glimpse of them. Their living structure is very similar to humans, with not only tables, chairs, beds, and other furniture, but they can't find anything related to eating or eating. Equipment related to excretion. No clothing, shoes, or socks have ever been found. The only equipment that can be found is a collar made of metal with a crystal circuit structure installed inside. Of course, the term collar is just the speculation of experts. The most puzzling thing is that in all the urban ruins of the Alpha people, there are no medical institutions or buildings with similar functions. Instead, in the center of each residential community, there is a kind of incineration similar to that on the Ark. A device very similar to a furnace. Some people think that this creature can use its skin for photosynthesis, so it does not need to eat or excrete, and it does not need to wear clothes. Because of this characteristic, Alpha people probably will not feel ashamed to expose their bodies in public. As for why there are no hospitals, perhaps their biotechnology has already lifted the restrictions on birth, old age, illness, and death. The genes of newborn individuals have been adjusted before birth, which is enough to ensure that they will not suffer from any disease before the end of their natural lifespan. There are many more speculations like this. In Ark's electronic library, there are more than 5,000 books on the life and society of Alpha civilization. The contents of them combined are estimated to be several terabytes, but most of the contents are but they are all imagined out of thin air by the editor relying on very poor information. Many of the claims are simply untenable, and there are as many loopholes as the code that a newly graduated third-process programmer stayed up late to type out. But at least one thing is certain, Alphas have many similarities to humans. Kaylan once flew in Alpha civilization's blasphemer mecha. At least the cockpit of that thing can adapt to the human body, and the neural connection device it contains can also be applied to the human body. Therefore, these humanoid creatures in the square may be the mysterious Alpha people themselves. What are they doing? A military parade? Kaylan tried hard to recall the images that flashed through his mind, trying to make those details as clear as possible. He was shocked to find that on these creatures, there was a silicone tube connected about 3 centimeters below the neck. Through the translucent material of the tube, you can vaguely see the light gray viscous fluid flowing inside, slowly pouring into their bodies. Is this how alphas eat? If the internal structure of the upper body of these creatures is similar to that of humans, the silicone tube is inserted right into the esophagus. From the texture point of view, the gray liquid food is more in line with the standard of nasal feeding nutrients that do not need to be chewed and are easy to absorb. If these alpha people are really eating, then this square is actually equivalent to an open-air canteen. The area of this square is not small, it is roughly a square with a side length of about 1 kilometer. If this square was located on the surface of Alpha Star, it should have been discovered by ARC's detection drone. But in K. Ian's memory, from the S-class ruins at the top of the pyramid to the lowest F-class ruins, which were almost removed from the rating committee several times, there was no such square. Perhaps, this square has been destroyed, or maybe, like the remains of a glacier, it has sunk deep into the ground. These memory fragments will pop up at this time. Is it because this strange space and strange shadow just meet certain triggering conditions? Although I don't know why Valkyrie's electromagnetic sniper cannon hit the knob-like protrusion, I was teleported into this space, and I don't know why such a half-human, half-octopus monster appeared in front of me, but there is one thing. Kaylan was certain that the human silhouette he saw in the time-stop state was the same thing as the unknown creatures lining up to eat in the square in the memory fragments. If these creatures in the square are really Alpha Man, then what is standing 5 meters in front of him now is not an extremely precious living sample. Kaylan suddenly had the idea of capturing this creature alive. I'm sorry. Although you didn't show any hostility towards me, except for you, there is nothing in this ghost place, so I had to use you as a breakthrough. Kaylan turned on time stop, then aimed the hook launcher on the armor at the shoulder of the Phantom, and pressed the launch button. There is a steel cable connecting the hook and the launcher, so even after it is launched, it will not be stopped. The sharp tip instantly penetrates the right shoulder of the Phantom, and the 4 barbs open instantly, without any it cut into the opponent's body hinderingly. At this moment, a sharp pain suddenly came from under K. Ian's right shoulder blade. The muscle tissue in this area seemed to be torn apart by something. Kaylan even withdrew from the time-stop state. As soon as the time stop was released, the hook that had been fixed immediately lost its target and quickly retracted into the launcher. Kaylan endured the pain and removed the armor on his right shoulder. He reached out and touched the area where the severe pain was coming from. It was a bloody wound that ran from the front of the shoulder blade to the back. K. Ian's heart suddenly thumped. He gritted his teeth and dug his fingers into the wound. Deep in the wound, he felt 4 incisions in different directions, which corresponded to the 4 barbs on the hook. I hit the shadow that seemed to be Alpha with my hook, but the wound appeared on my own body. K. Ian's heart was filled with fear, even though the wound had begun to heal, even though the pain had begun to subside, the indescribable feeling of depression gradually swallowed him up. Why did the damage I caused to that Phantom reflect back on me? There was no damage to the shoulder armor of the power armor, and even the inner lining of clothing was intact. This wound appeared completely out of thin air. What exactly is this principle? Assuming that this is really the case, then why did he shoot the Phantom twice before and there were no bullet holes in his body? Wrong. The 2 conditions are not equal. Kaylan subconsciously touched the retracted hook. After the time stop was released, the hook that originally hit the target lost its target. In other words, the Phantom was no longer there. Naturally, the one that had just been shot, there's no way a bullet could hit it. Extrapolating from this, in other words, this Phantom will only have an entity that can be hit when it is in the time-stop state? No, that's not right either. It has no body. The one who was hit was not the Phantom, but Kaylan himself. That shadow is more like K. Ian's shadow, a shadow that reverses K. Ian's perspective. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 499. Wrong. Still not right? If that was his own shadow, even if the perspective of the shadow and the main body were reversed, the hook shot out from K. Ian's hand could not be on his own body. In the time-stop state, the tightened hook rope is a straight line, and the two endpoints of the straight line are in two completely different directions. This is not something that can be done by a simple blindfold, especially those methods that shield and interfere with human body perception will only take effect if they are continuously operating. Once time and space are stagnant, these methods will immediately defeat themselves. To achieve this level, Kaylan can think of only three possibilities. The first possibility, I have fallen into an illusion from the beginning. Although illusions cannot take effect in stagnant time and space, what if even time stop itself is part of the illusion? Just like in the bottomless sinkhole, it's unreasonable that K-Ian's pause duration can greatly exceed the original limit, but if all this is an illusion, it makes perfect sense. The second possibility is also the simplest and most direct one in practice. There are some small wormholes in this space. The entrance of a certain wormhole is located exactly on the shoulder of the Phantom, and the exit is on the same side. Corresponding to himself, the hook he shot passed through the wormhole, and then hit himself. It is crisp and straightforward, even those semi-literate people who have not completed their compulsory education and went to work in the mines can understand it. But for some reason, in K-Ian's subconscious, he always felt that this possibility was the lowest. As for the third possibility, it is the most mysterious one. In this space, the rules of the universe at the physical level have been distorted, and all the basic laws applicable to the real universe are not necessarily correct here. In short, in this hellish place, even the result of 1 + 1 may not be 2, let alone other more outrageous phenomena. Kaylan couldn't help but think of the imaginary number space named Dirac C, which was a world full of negative energy that could not be observed. The relationship between it and the real world is like two sides of the same coin. The real world is the front of the coin, and the Dirac C is the other side of the coin. People who live on the front side of the coin can never see the other side of the coin. No wonder there is no light or sound in this world. After all, quantum mechanics is indecisive. But then again, the Dirac Sea should be a vacuum world, but there is obviously enough oxygen here. Moreover, the temperature on the cartridge case, the gun butt melted by the laser, these things should not exist in a world full of negative energy. With the physical strength of human beings, it is impossible to physically travel through a natural wormhole without the help of external objects, let alone the Dirac Sea. Although with human beings' current abilities, this space is still a concept that only exists in the imagination, but if you think about it with your heels, you can tell that this kind of place is definitely not suitable for living people. Kaylan felt that if he really entered the Dirac Sea by mistake, he would most likely be annihilated as soon as he entered. He felt that his mind was now a mess, and the most terrible thing was that even if he wanted to cut through the mess with a quick knife, he didn't have the knife in his hand. When the book comes to use, I will hate it. Although Kaylan and the term student are not comparable, his understanding of quantum mechanics almost all comes from science fiction movies and online novels. Those screenwriters and authors probably can't understand it themselves. What are those high-end sounding nouns? But even if a physics guru from a research institute comes here, he probably won't be able to find a way out, right? Thinking of this, Kaylan couldn't help but feel a little more balanced. When facing these unknown things, the top scholars in the human world are actually illiterate. There is not much difference. On the other hand, preconceived notions make it easier for these experts to fall into some simple misunderstandings. That phantom must be the key to breaking the situation, but the problem is that I can't even touch it, so how can I start talking about breaking the situation? Damn it, I really want to destroy it directly. Just when Kaylan was sighing in his heart, a sudden bright light filled the surrounding space. He had become accustomed to the darkness and immediately squinted his eyes and blocked his face with his palms. At the same time, a noisy sound also penetrated his ears. At this time, back to the normal space. Kaylan slowly put down his hand, only to find that Hound and the others were staring at him with wary expressions. Several agents under IA even raised their weapons. "Who are you?" the hound asked. His eyes were full of surprise. Although the muzzle of the gun was pointed diagonally at the ground, his finger was always on the safety switch. I'm Kaylan, Kaylan replied. Kaylan could actually guess pretty much what everyone was thinking in their hearts at the moment. If he suddenly disappears and reappears, if it were anyone else, he would also have doubts. Who knows if the person in front of him is still the same person he once knew. I need to confirm your identity, Hound thought for a moment, then asked, the night before the mission, you, me, Yvonne and Leighton, the four of us played double dunks. How much money did you lose in the end? I didn't lose money. I was the one who won. The one who lost the most was Leighton, followed by you, and Kaylan changed the subject. We were supposed to have a double dunk that day, but Leighton, I was in a hurry to finish the transformation of Valkyrie, so I didn't come. There were only 3 of us and we were playing landlords. What's my favorite brand of beer? The hound asked again. You haven't told me such a thing. Anyway, you drink whatever is in the refrigerator. You never choose. However, carbonated drinks and beers with lots of fizzy drinks are usually the first to be finished in the god hunting group. Kaylan is responsible for replenishing the refrigerator stock 8 out of 10 times, so he knows this very well. Okay, last question, what color underwear does Miss Soma wear most often? Are you stupid? Kaylan was stunned for a moment, and then made an international friendly gesture to the old dog. P.S. Thanks for the 1,200 starting coins as a reward for hearing the name. P.S. Regarding Dirac C, imaginary number space, etc., I made nonsense while reading Baidu encyclopedia and street stall literature. Please just watch it for fun. Don't use code names if it is the same. It is purely blind. A cat hits a dead mouse. After all, we are soft science fiction, right? It's still the old saying, indecision, quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics YYDS.